Hi, welcome to this video. So in this video, I'm actually hopefully starting a series. I may or may not finish. These are videos of me playing with the Python implementation of opcua. Okay, opcua is a protocol set. You may or may not be familiar, but it helps you to connect and send data between different computers using something called a server and client. Okay, a server is where you usually, if you want to send data out, okay, if let's say you have a thermocouple that's hooked up to a computer, and then you want to, if let's say you have a computer here, I think I should use GIMP. Do I have GIMP? Oh, I don't have GIMP yet, or not on this computer. But anyway, if you have a box or computer that is linked to some sort of thermocouple, so I just call it T. So this thermocouple will actually send data to this computer, right? And let's say this computer is it has a Wi-Fi, okay, Wi-Fi signal, and then it's supposed to send data to this other computer remotely. So these two are connected via Wi-Fi, or you can connect them via Ethernet cable. Long story short, they are not the same computer. However, how do you then send data from one computer to another? Okay, let's say you want to send temperature data from one computer to the other, or you want to send voltage or whatever signals from one computer to another. Okay, one of the common ways, especially in industry, to do it is with opcua. Alright, so this is a set of protocols that helps you to communicate between different programs. So this guy may be recording this thermocouple data using one program, but you can actually use opcua protocol to send the data via this opcua protocol. So as long as you have an opcua server here, okay, this server will actually, I guess, collect data from this data logger and then send it so-called well, what it does is it stores it on the server, and then what the client does, well, the client is as what, well, it is similar to the idea of a human client. A human client will come to will maybe come to customer service and ask for some information. So you can imagine this guy is asking for temperature information. So it goes to customer service or the server, and this is the client. The client's asking for data. Here, can I have some temperature data? Then the server will say, sure, I'll send you some temperature data. So this is the whole idea between client and server. And this opcua client, which is requesting data, is supposed to so-called get that done. Okay, so that's what a client and server is about. Alright, yeah, so just want to introduce you to some useful websites. Okay, this module is called asyncua. This is a module you have to install manually, okay, using the Python installer pip. Alright, so yeah, hold on. So yeah, you have to install it using pip, and usually yeah, so this is from pypy.org, project asyncua. This is their pip website. You can install it here. This is their GitHub, for which you can see all these examples, and then you can start to sort of learning how you can start to learn how to set up opcua server and client. You can see the tutorials. You'll be listed client, blah blah blah. There'll be examples here. Okay, this is a client, example of a code for client. It's not that long, it's like 67 lines, but there'll be lots of code that you may or may not be familiar with. And well, of course, my style is as I learn, I post videos. So I usually start out when I start out learning, I'll be probably as clueless. So when I know something, then I kind of update the video so that it's kind of got some logical progression. Okay, so hopefully it helps me track my learning, and I hope it's helpful for you as well. And then, okay, so but good places to start are, you see this client minimal. Okay, client minimal means, yeah, remember we are asking for data. So how do you build a code that asks for data? Well, this is how you do it, and you can see this is a very short piece of code, and probably lots of things that you probably don't know. Async IO, what is this? You may or may not have come across this, but async IO for me, I mean prior to learning OPCUA, I have not even come across this module before. I don't know what this is about. And then the main thing you got to know is this thing called asyncua. Okay, asyncua. Now, there'll be all these things to figure out later on, like what is await, what is async. All these are part of the async IO, asynchronous input-output libraries. So there are different way of doing functions, and I have a list of websites for you. I mean, I guess I'll share them in the later videos, but this is where you can find their GitHub, the examples. This is example of server minimal. So if you go down alphabetically, you should be able to see server minimal, and that's where you can start learning how to program a basic OPCUA server. All right, and then yeah, let's get started. Let's see how do we. Let me clear this screen. Yeah, let's see whether we can. Yeah, I was doing another video. OPCUA is async IO. Let's have a Python console. Go to examples maybe. Let's have a Python 3. Okay, so what do we need to import? Okay, so this part is about installing. Okay, the main thing we need to have is this asyncua server or asyncua. So let's try to import asyncua, and then we'll see if we have the installed things. We don't have it, and so we'll need to install. So that's one thing you need to install. The other thing is async. It's very important. Async IO. Do we have async IO? Yes, we do have async IO. So asynchronous input output async IO is already installed, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, how do we install asyncua? Well, you'll just have to do pip install asyncua. Let's hope this works. So it's going to install asyncua along with all its dependencies. Alright, so it gives us a warning, but it installs everything. These are installed in UA browse blah blah blah, and this is not on the path. Okay, and then of course I'm using an outdated version of pip. So let's try and see whether asyncua is installed. Import asyncua. Okay, so asyncua is now installed, so it's that simple to install OPCUA modules. And then the next thing is of course to install these things one at a time. Okay, alright, so I've basically shown you, actually I can close that as well. I've shown you how to install asyncua. Okay, asyncua import, asyncua import, do asyncua, async IO. Okay, and of course there are lots of other modules as well, such as logging sys and everything else. The thing can be pretty overwhelming. So yeah, where do we start? Okay, where do we start? Let's start at the server. Okay, we are about 9 minutes in. Yeah, let's start at the server. Okay, on the server side, there will be some, if you are familiar with Python, at least some level of Python, you should be able to recognize some sort of syntax. So here are some modules you're importing. Okay, this is basically part of your system. Yeah, okay. Frankly speaking, I'm not that familiar with it now. So, but I know once you import system, it's probably some kind of module. It will have some classes in it, such as well, path is it looks like a class or function. Then insert is one of the methods in that. So that's what the syntax looks like to me at this point in time. Okay, the juicy parts are this asyncua. Okay, from asyncua, these things you can import UA, you can import server. Okay, you can of course look at the source code to see what each of these actually does. Asyncua, you have the init py everything here, then you have ua, okay, and then what? If you look at init py, or yeah, let's just look here. So yeah, it's a pure, it says here pure Python OPCUA library, and this is the constructor. It will just import all of this. Alright, oh, it has crypto libraries in fact as well. It's quite interesting. So I mean, you can take some time to explore, but I'm not going to explore the source code now. Yeah, I have not done that prior to this video. So yeah, let's just look at the code. Okay. So what is logging? What all these logging things here, you may or may not be familiar, but this is from this logging library. I've done some reading. It's basically just to help you print some useful information. That's as far as I know. It may be doing more. I'm not sure at this point, but yeah. So that gives you a clue as to what this code does. Now, so this is the client one. I'm going to do, yeah, why not let's just do the client first. So the client is, asking for data. So for clients, you need to know where to ask data from and all that stuff. So let's try to go through these things one at a time. Okay, so what is this async here? Async here defines a sort of an asynchronous way of executing things. For example, usually you have a you define something like a main function over here. All right, async def main. That's right, async def main. So if you define, usually this is how you declare a function. And if you want to do it asynchronously, you use the async keyword. Okay. Again, you may not be familiar now, but don't worry. If you're not so sure, for the first time, just ignore these async things and just pretend that it's not there. Okay. We can go through some of it later to see. Yeah. For now, just ignore. Okay, so first thing first, for a client, you need to know where to get your data from, right? So you need to provide some sort of URL. And then what you see here, OPC TCP : // This looks like an internet address or something, right? Usually you have HTTP : // but HTTP is a client, not client, it's a protocol for web servers or websites. For OPC UA, you use the OPC TCP client, not client, protocol. Okay, OPC.TCP. TCP is, if you've done computer networking before, you may or may not, it's this thing called transmission control protocol. It's helping you to establish a very robust connection between client and server, as far as possible. As far as you can, of course, connect the cables together and everything. But if you're not sure, don't worry. I also have a long series of videos of networking, and they will go into details of IP address and everything, anything internet related. And then you'll see this local host here, and then this number 4840. This is actually a port number. Okay, what's a port number? What's TCP? Okay, all of this will be covered inside my, what do you call that? The networking for newbies. Yes, I have a networking for newbies playlist. Okay, you can go and check it out. I will show you some of the things you might need to know. Of course, there are more advanced versions out there all over the web, but if you don't want to learn so much and you just want to take it nice and slow and easy, just learn for interest and hopefully to see what this is about, you can just watch that. Okay, I'll leave the link in the description, or okay, maybe I'll just tell you. Let's go to youtube.com, networking for newbies, computer networking for newbies. Alright, and this is my okay, so see, this is where it is. I can tell you more about computer networking here.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I don't even know where my playlist is, but let's see. I want to have playlist. Thank you. Yeah, this is the playlist. I will just copy and paste here. You can see I have 19 videos.
Hi.
Yeah, 19 videos here. So you can go and slowly check them out. So I'll show you how to explore your local network. What is TCP? What is domain name? Some of the basic things just to help you demystify everything. Okay? So I will leave this in the description. You can go and look it up in your own time in order to understand what's going on. So again, next line you will see this async thing. Okay. From now on I will just assume you know what TCP is, what this port number means, all of that. Just make sure you go and watch that video series. Then you can come back here with that prerequisite information. Okay, so this is the URL. It will have this it will be using this opc.tcp protocol, and it will be this client is looking for a server on I guess the local host. Yeah. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, this is the what do you call that? This is the what am I saying? Yeah, this is the URL of the client, not the server. Oh, no, this is the URL of the server. My bad. This is the server URL. So whenever you set up your OPC UA server, you will need to key in a URL as well. You need to make sure the client URL or the server URL is the correct server URL, and the client will need to look for that server URL like manually. So you need to type that in all to make sure it's like consistent. Okay, so URL is very important when it comes to computer networking. It will have all the data needed for us to search for the thing. Okay, so next thing is that you use a with statement. I know I hope you know what a with statement is. So it says with client URL equals to whatever this is, right? Okay, so client is equals to this thing. So every time you see client, you can just copy this thing and paste it here. So that's what it does. So first thing it does a logger thing. So this is just to help you print some debug or important data. Then you have this thing called URI and index, which you kind of again need to type in manually. Yeah, URI is pointing to this GitHub repository under these examples. Okay. As of now, I'm not that sure why this is here, but hopefully it will get clearer as I explore, and then of course I'll just update you as things come along. Okay. So and then the next thing it does is to declare a variable. So this variable equals to client nodes root get child blah blah blah. So all of these things are part of your variables. Okay, so the client itself will need to go to some sort of you'll need to know where the server is, which is this server. This is the server's URL, and that will always need to be known. So that this information is already put into the client by default in this line of code. And then you have a URI thing here. Very simple. You will see this repeat again later on. And then here is where you kind of define a variable. Okay. So so this is I guess when you start to establish, you start to access the data, and then here is where you like print the value. So here's where you access the data. This is where you print the value of that data. Okay. This part is if name equals to main, you run the async IO, you run the function. Okay, so Okay, so the thing is that for asynchronous functions like this, or they call it, there's a special name for it, I just cannot remember it off the top of my head. But the way to run this kind of functions is to use the asyncio run method. Okay, asyncio run method, and then you put the name of the function over here. For example, this is the main function, this is what you do, main. So that's how you sort of get things done. Okay, you can of course clone this code and then put it into your Python and everything. Alright, so yeah, hopefully this just roughly gives you the outline of what a client looks like. I know I have not gone through a lot of detail, but I just gave you a very rough high-level overview so that hopefully you when you look at this code, it may be confusing and stuff, but roughly know what each line of code is doing. Like here is reading and printing a value, the variable value. Okay, and then over here is where you actually store. I mean, logically, you need to know where your server data is, or your server URL is, right? So, and this server happens to be on the local host. Okay, so that's what we have. Now, so that's the client side. Okay. Okay, client, and then here now let's talk about the server minimal code. Okay, I have not typed anything just yet. I have not played with anything just yet, but I'm just going to show you some of this. Okay, and we have the same modules being imported here. Okay, and under client we have asyncio, we have sys, we have logging. Then from asyncua we also import lots of things. So again, over here we import a lot of things as well, except instead of for server, instead of importing client and node, we import UA and we import server. So it's slightly different, all these imports. This obviously we need to have the server object to start our OPC UA server. And then we have this thing called UA method. What is this? Well, basically this is a form. Alright, so I give you a very simplified model of what a client and server can do. A server can be run on a computer that's collecting data like from the temperature. But a server can do much more than that. A server can actually just run calculations on this computer, so that if let's say your client is asking what is I have A and B, can you multiply A and B for me? So it will send a request to server. So I have A and B, and then I send a request to the server. I ask the server to multiply A and B. So the server will say, okay, if a server has a function to multiply A and B, the server will just multiply A and B, and then it will send the data back to your client. So this is a very basic form of, I guess, cloud computing. Well, I'm using it very loosely, the term cloud, but as far as I understand, you are asking another computer to perform calculations for you. So to me, that sounds like cloud computing, right? I mean, this is what a server can do. You can get servers to do calculations for you, not just collect data. And I guess OPC UA servers can also do that if you wanted. Okay, so but the whole point of OPC UA server, the main thing is to get data from one computer to another using a very specific set of protocols. Okay, a protocol is just like a proper syntax or proper language, okay, between a client and server, so that they are talking in the same language. So this language is referred to as protocol. Okay, so again, we actually define a asynchronous method or asynchronous function. Here is the main function. Again, we have our logger thing giving us data. Logger is will give us debug data. Then here is a part where we start to set up our server. And our server here is we are actually declaring a server object under this server. Okay, so we actually imported server from asyncua. Alright, we imported a server from asyncua, and then we start the server init function. That means we run the constructor. And then over here we also run the we set an endpoint. Okay, that means we kind of sort of set the URL of the server, which the client will need to know. OPC TCP localhost blah 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 server. Here also OPC TCP 0.0.0.0. Then you have the port number, free OPC UA server. So you can see both of these are almost the same, but here uses the 0.0.0.0 IP address. Now usually this should, at least on Linux, okay, when you ping this number, it will ping the local host. And usually local host is 127.0.0.1. So if you ping 127.0.0.1, yeah, you're actually pinging your own address. Okay, so the other way you can do it is to ping localhost. It will also ping your own local address, but this is in IP version 6, whereas this is in IP version 4. Both of these are talking about local addresses. Okay, so so this is a localhost. It will refer to some sort of IP version 6 address, which is here. Okay, now if you ping this IP address on Linux, okay, all of this is actually just pinging yourself. If I ping this number 0.0.0.0, okay, you'll say ping transmit failed, general failure. Okay, somehow this computer or this Windows in the command prompt, the ping command doesn't know how to the ping command doesn't know how to resolve this 0.0.0.0 address to the local host. So it kind of, I guess, in a sense, works a little bit better for Linux in terms of pinging this address. Now, well, you can also try doing this with the port number, but I don't know whether that will work. Localhost 4840. Okay, then never mind, forget it. But yes, this is a IP address. This is the port number, and together they form a socket address, if I'm not wrong. Okay, a socket is the part of the program that again helps you connect your program to the internet or to a network. Alright, so here's where we set up our own namespace with the URI and index thing over here. So both of these parts are similar between server and client, so I'm just ignoring this part first. Alright, next thing is to, over here, instead of just declaring a variable, we actually declare a server object. Okay, my object await. Okay, again, ignore the await part first. Okay, server nodes object. Okay, we add an object. Okay, we are adding an object. So after we start our server object, we add another object to this to this server. So we start by putting my object, and then we declare a variable under this my object. Okay, so it's like many layers down just to declare a variable. Okay, but of course, if you want to organize your variables, if you have 30 to 50 or even more variables, it'll be good to organize them like that. Alright, so that maybe you have 10 variables pertaining to temperature within one object, then another 10 variables pertaining to voltage in another object. Okay, so if you want your variable to be writable by clients, for example, okay, if I'm sending a voltage signal to a receiver, and then you want, okay, if let's say you want remote control, right? Okay, if you want remote control, then you have a TV or something like that over here. Actually nowadays you don't really watch TV so much, right? But anyway, so if you want to do remote control, maybe you have a variable that it's on or off, right? Variable equals to on or off. Okay, you have a remote control. The variable is, well, on or off. Do you want the TV to be on or off? If the TV is on, you send a signal of 5 volts. If the variable is on, you send a signal of 5 volts, and then somehow it turns on the TV. If the variable is off, you send a signal of 0 volts, so the TV turns off. Something like that. Very, very crude example, may not even be accurate. So this is something definitely a kind of variable on the server that you want the client to be able to change if you want to do remote control. So I say, if I say the client, if I want the client to turn on the TV, so hey client, can I turn the TV on? So let me turn this variable, maybe it's called a TV on off. let me set the value to on, then the TV will turn on. So somehow this client will need to tell the server, please change the value of this variable to on so that I can turn on the TV. Yeah, so that is what set writable does. So normally variables on the server are not writable. You need to manually set them to become writable in order for the client to say, hey, can I change this variable value, like turning on the TV, turning it on and off, something like that. Okay, so next thing is the add method. Add method means to add a function. Okay, methods are functions. I add a function to this object. So for example, you have a method here, a function here. It's just called FUNC func. Okay, so FUNC is put over here. So it's adding the method, and then you need to send the node ID. You need to put the name of this qualified name and everything. So you need to set an ID. You need to set a qualified name for this method. Okay, you need to tell opcua what method this is or what function this is, so you have to put in here. Again, the syntax, again, I'm not that sure. I have to go and check it out, but at least to me that looks like it. Then you have a type of input and a type of output. Okay, that's just educated guesswork. So yeah, based on the way they write this, usually you have inputs and outputs. Yeah. So this thing, if you're not sure, I guess you can look at where this functions is defined. Then you can take a look at what exactly this add method thing is doing behind the scenes. Okay, and what are the variables you have to put into this function to get it to work. Alright, so this is the function that adds a function to an object. Okay, it adds this function to this server node object, right? Server node object. So okay, so what have we done here? We have declared a variable. We have made this variable writable. Okay, we have made this variable writable, and we have also added a method or function to it. Okay, and then after that, so after we so-called configure our server, so this part is actually just configuring our server, what variables are there, what functions are there, then we can start the server. So this is the part that actually runs the server. It is actually a while loop. I guess it's pretty similar to a client in a sense. Oh, the client doesn't even have a while loop. The server has to have a while loop, but the client can just read values one at a time, or set values one at a time, okay, or request data one at a time. You don't need to have a client constantly running, that's for sure. So, but the server always has to run. Okay, so that's why when you turn the server on, it has to be what do you call that? Alright, yeah, it has to be turned on, and then it has to be doing something. Okay, so what is this thing doing here? Okay, it has a await async IO sleep. So this thing is actually causing the server to just sleep, fall asleep, right? Alright, so next thing is what? Okay, you will get the my variable. My variable is a property or an attribute, okay, or property of this object. Okay, it's just a variable which you do get and set. So I guess the way to get the value is using this my variable dot get value. Okay, so the new value will be this. And then yeah, this new value will be this get value plus 0.1, and you'll be put into the new value. Okay, and then the info will be set value to blah blah blah, my variable new value. Okay, so this part is just basically increasing the is putting, yeah, what is happening? Yeah, so Yeah, so this my variable starts, I guess, at the number 6.7, a value of 6.7. Then what happens is that, yeah, when you have my variable, you get 6.7. That's the first time you get the value. You add 0.1 to it, and then you put it as a new value. So every, I guess, 1 second, because you have to sleep for 1 second, the opcua server will sleep for 1 second. Then it will just manually add this value every 1 second. So it'll be 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, blah blah blah. And then it will write the new value in. It will so for example, new value is now 6.8 because it was 6.7 before. It becomes 6.8, and then you use the write method. So it's a get and set method. In this case, it's a write method, and then it will put that into my variable. And my variable will be it will become 6.8 in the next loop. So it will just increase the value by +1, and then it sets it to this thing, and then it you have to go through the whole while loop again until the whole thing stops. Okay, so I guess when this whole thing runs, this thing will just keep going again and again, adding 6.7 to 6.8 to 6.9, and then at least this server is sort of running already. Okay, and it doesn't look like this server is well, you can actually interface with this client, or at least modify this code to communicate with the server here. Yeah, but this server tends to use a while loop, so at least that's the structure of a server just by inspection. Okay, so that's all this minimal server is doing. It's not really doing very much in the first place, so it just does a while loop. Okay, and then of course you give it an address to help it interface with clients, and I guess that's it. Alright, so now of course this is how to run this code. You use the asyncio run min, or the asyncio run thing. You can even give it a true debug flag if you want, so that it will access all these logger info things. But yeah, you can try running it in the next video, or subsequent videos you can keep exploring what's actually going on. But of course, one thing in the way is, what is this await, what is this await here, and what is this async? That takes a fair bit of explanation, so we have to go through some of that first, and this is under the asyncio libraries. Okay, and of course logging as well. Okay, and well, since we don't see it so much, but yeah, we can start to understand the importance of all these bits of code. So thanks for watching, and at least this introduction of opcua Python code.